Colin, I must admit, once again, this is my favorite time of the week, and I couldn't agree with you more. It really is incredible. The conflict there of your desire to see your business succeed, often your family ends up on the altar of sacrifice. And it's a challenge. Look, it really is. It's a big challenge. Like, how do you balance both those things? And when you're so excited about something and say happy in business, and you come back home and you're around the meal table or something like that, and you share about this exciting thing, and everyone looks at you with blank faces. And yeah, but did you see the latest sports event or something like that? Or I just watched TikTok and I saw this. And you think, hang on, guys, I just told you about this mind blowing thing and I'm getting nothing here. It's a challenge. And then does that mean you spend more time in your business and then less time still in your family? It's look, Colin and Michelle, I must admit, it's one of the most challenging things I've had to wrestle with in all of my entrepreneurial career. And I got a few sort of strategies that I'd like to share with everyone today and share with you guys and get your feedback on some of the things that I did to help manage that. But before we get stuck into things, Colin, what's going on with Startup Club?
Let me tell you this. This has not been a very good week for me. My partners and I, we started a company in 2003 called Geeks for Less. We have 800 programmers globally, and we have about 600 people in Ukraine, and we still, to this day, have 300 people in Nikolaev, Ukraine, and it really is the front line. And so we started a charity on Give, Send, Go. If you just go to Give, Send, Go, we're the number one charity right now on Give, Send, Go. And I'll tell you why it's important, because we are actually able to get the money to the people on the street instantly. We have the system set up, we have the people on the street, even though they are under attack. Let me tell you this, they have three sides of the city's under attack. They're shelling the city. Hope this is not the next Maripol. But our office is about 2 miles from the front line. And we have this massive facility, 20, 50, 30, 40,000 square foot office facility. And it's heartbreaking. But I'll tell you this, we can make a difference. We've already raised $140,000, $50, $20. If you can put $100, anything you can put will go directly to the people, and it will go this week. It'll go literally tomorrow. We have bought a drone for the city, a $30,000 drone, which what it does is identifies potential military when they're coming into the city to get the civilians out of the way. We are supporting the hospital in the local city. If you've been watching CNN, the hospital's been on CNN. That's the hospital that we are supporting. We have donated, the company that I'm involved with and partially own, has donated over $1 million to this hospital in the last 8 years. This is a time when everybody here in this audience, and this is not what the show's about, I know that, I'm just making the appeal. Go to Give, Send, Go. Click on We Stand with Ukraine and give $50. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do today, Michael. I'm going to match everything up to $1,000. So if you go crazy, I'm not going to go. I can't. I don't have that cut. But I'll tell you this: if you donate $50, I'm going to match it. You donate $100, I'm going to match it. You donate $500, I'm going to match it up to $1,000. So if you can just go to that website and let's raise some money, and let's not look back in history when we saw this war on TV. Let's look at it as at a time when we made a difference, when we actually put our money in and we actually spending a little bit of money makes a big difference. And we're the number one spot right now on Give, Send, Go. So even $10 helps keep us up there, and everything's appreciated. So sorry, Michael, I went on a total tangent there. What was your question? I don't even remember now. I'm just like, we are literally, I have hundreds of employees. We have brought hundreds of employees outside the country, but we still have about 300 people behind enemy lines, or near enemy lines, not behind, near enemy lines. And it's hard to concentrate, isn't it? What was your question, Michael?
No, that's okay. I think that you gave an example of what this topic today is all about, and it's about family and the fact that with as entrepreneurs, we actually have a broader definition of family. It's not just the people at home, they're one family, they're our immediate family, but there's also the family in the office. There's the family in your case, in Ukraine, Colin, which you've been working with for the past 8 years. It's people like that. They are family. When you look at work colleagues, they're not just colleagues, they're family. And when you think about your business people in your office, that yes, they're employees, but you know what? I'm yet to find an entrepreneur who doesn't view them almost like family. And we need to care for them and we need to look after them and we need to respect them. And sometimes we need to rescue them. I couldn't imagine anything worse than, and I thank God for the fact that I don't have staff in Ukraine or anything like that at this time. It's a horrific situation there. But in your case, Colin, you have family in Ukraine and you're doing whatever you can to help them out and to get them out of there. And I just want to honor you for that and just say, well done for looking after your entrepreneurial family in that regard. And you're still here, though, at the Complete Entrepreneur. So thank you very
Yeah,
much for
and
that.
I know this is not the topic, Michael, but I have to say there are tears in my eyes right now. There are people getting killed. There are programmers who are fighting a battle which I don't even think they should be fighting. They shouldn't have guns in their hands. And I'm just, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to watch. It's hard to see. And let's get on with the show, though. Let's get on with the show. And please, anyone who does a donation today, I'm willing to match that donation. I'm watching them right now. We've had one come in a few minutes ago. Anyone who does a donation, really appreciate it. Go to Give Send Go for Ukraine.
Yeah. So we're talking about, you're listening to The Complete Entrepreneur. This is a show that's 5 p.m. Eastern Time every single Thursday. And it's one that I must admit, we've been doing for nearly a year now. And it's a time of day I really look forward to each week. And the reason why is because it's not just about Michael, Colin, Michelle up here talking about each other amongst ourselves about the topic, but it's about hearing from you, the entrepreneurs, and hearing real life experiences. That's the thing that I must admit I hunger for. And it's going to be great to go to 420 and TED shortly on this. But just to to frame it up, the entrepreneur's family, that's the topic we're looking at today. And how do you juggle your family life and your business life? But also, should you involve your family in your business? And if you do, then what's the best way to do it? What strategies can you adopt that will help balance your personal business life? Like here, like right now, what are some of the things that you can do to be able to do that? To give you an idea, in one of my businesses, I have my best friend that I've known since grade four. He works for me, and also my brother-in-law who works for me, and they've been working with me for about 15 years. Yeah, and there's various strategies that had to be put in place to manage that. And I'm so happy that I have them working with me. And it's, yes, are they employees? Technically, yes. They're family, and they're family in the truest sense of the word as well. Yeah. And so what I actually do to put in place, but just before I jump to that, because there are some strategies I had to put in place to be able to manage those relationships both personally and professionally. What I'd like to be able to do is jump down to 420 there. 420, it is so good to hear from you. It's been way too long, man. Welcome to the Complete
That's
Entrepreneur.
George. I
I
know he
know
says
it is.
420, but that's
I
George.
know it's George. But George, welcome to the Complete Entrepreneur. We'd love to hear from you on this topic on the entrepreneur's family. Go for it, George.
Yeah, how you doing, guys? Nice to see you guys. Yeah, this is an interesting topic because I know what I went through as an entrepreneur in the home and being the only breadwinner and just stepping out in faith, you could say, and just going for it. And I've talked about this, a couple times in interviews in the past about how me being an entrepreneur, how a lot of people have a misconception of, yeah, I'm gonna start my own business. I'm gonna have more free time, and that's a lie. First of all, when you're working 9 to 5, you're 40 hours on the clock. You have more time for reals at doing your regular job than being an entrepreneur in the beginning. Because I know for me, I was spending like 80 hours a week trying to get this my business up and going, and I didn't really go on vacations. I didn't take trips because I was laser focused on trying to build something that I know that if I work hard now, I'll be able to relax later and enjoy life later. And it did affect me, and it affect my marriage too, believe it or not. We went through some stuff because I was spending more time on the business side and not spending time with my family and my kids. It's not easy to be an entrepreneur, man, but at the end my wife supported my decision. But I wish I could have did more things. I wish I was in position to tell the kids, let's go to Disneyland. I didn't get to do none of that stuff. I was at home, I was working, I was taking care of the family, and it did bring some strife in the home with me and my partner, my wife, and because she wanted me to spend more time with them. It's like I had a company here where it was doing really well, and I was getting hammered with calls, and then back in 2015, 2016. So it was tough. It was tough, guys. It really was. If I could turn the clock back, I would have did a little some things differently to spend time more with my kids when they were younger. Now they're older. Now I regret it because now it's like most of them are married, and I don't get to see them all the time. When I'm thinking, man, I lost a lot of time when they were young, when I had the opportunity to do things. When you're building a company, it's hard. You don't have the money coming in. Okay, I'm going to stop for 2 weeks. I'm going to take everybody, go somewhere. We didn't get to do none of that stuff. My wife understood, where I was going with this, and also too, as an entrepreneur, once you do your first company, you want to do another company, and it's almost like it's hard. I don't know how Colin does it, first of all, because Colin's like, he's a genius, man, and I look up to him big time. And even you, Michael and Michelle, you guys are great entrepreneurs, man. And like I said, you guys will build a company, sell it, build another company, and but you guys have a good team. I'm doing all this by myself. I don't have a team around me. That's the difference, I think, is I'm doing everything by myself. And like I said, now I ventured into another company which is in the cannabis space. We built out our first cannabis laboratory in the state of California, and that was probably the toughest challenge in my whole entrepreneurship, because it was rough, man. You want this to open, and it's just obstacle after obstacle. And but like I said, if I could encourage anybody here, guys, if you guys um, want to be an entrepreneur, just be remember, man, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to build it. And also, too, I wanted to say this. I think we talked about this the last time, but also take care of your health, man, because as entrepreneurs, we don't eat. We're busy, so busy working, we don't eat, and we're not eating healthy either. This is a great topic. I think a lot of people don't want to talk about their struggles and the situation that goes in their home. Every pictures of people being happy all the time, but you don't see behind the scenes the struggle, right, of an entrepreneur, man. And like I said, I appreciate all the lessons that I've learned through this process. And I really appreciate my wife because she stuck it out with me, man. She really believed in what I was doing, and look, now we're going to a different place.
Okay,
So
George, you
go
talked
ahead.
about something very important there. We talk about family, we talk about health. And I know the show, Michael's not about health, but you went through a lot. And you're a very successful entrepreneur. You've done a lot of great things. And you do what all entrepreneurs do, right or wrong, is we get totally obsessed with it and we go put it all in. And sometimes there's been other shows we talked about that with health. But can you talk a little bit more about what actually happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I went through some health issues like I think around a year and a half ago. I'm trying to remember when it would happen, but I suffered a massive heart attack like a year and a half ago, and 2 years ago, I think now, going to be 2 years in November. And I don't know, man, it really rocked me, of course, physically, but also spiritually. You could say, wow, man, that could have been it. But I survived it, miracle. And they did a quadruple bypass, and I survived that. And thank God that my heart was not damaged during that episode of that massive heart attack. My heart was not damaged at all. So I lucked out. I'm not paralyzed. I still have some issues. I got numbness in my left foot and my hand. That's part of the deal. If I could live with that. But yeah, I went through some really tough times with what I was when I went through with my heart, man. It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it happened to me, but it happened. So even in saying that, Colin, if you guys are listening to this and you're 45 to 50 or 60, man, go get your heart checked, man. Tell the doctor to check to see if you have any plaque in your arteries, because I didn't know I had plaque in my arteries. And you go to your doctor checkup and your heart, but he don't have an X-ray on it. So I just want to say that because I've said it. I did a video right after my heart attack on Facebook Live, and I want to tell my friends, hey, look, go get your hearts checked. And some of my friends didn't listen, and some of them passed away because of their heart. Unbelievable. And they saw the video, but sometimes I
Wow.
think we have to get the
So
pride out of the way and get that checked out.
I know I'm doing your job here, Michael, but just so, George, your family, how do they play a role? So you're here, there, you're the breadwinner. You say, I'm an entrepreneur, I do what I do, and then you're eating like crap, you're doing 80 hours a week, you have this heart attack, and then your family comes back and help you. They come back to help you. Can you talk a little bit about what they did?
Yeah, really, my wife, man, just like if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here because she's the one that identified that I was having a heart attack. I didn't know I was having a heart attack. She said, "You're having," I said, "Whatever." But eventually I knew something was happening. But my wife and my kids, man, they all rallied around me during that time. I mean, a lot of them all my kids were in shock because they were saying, man, I thought my dad was invincible. They were shocked that that happened to me. They never thought it was something like that would happen to me. And then to see me in the condition I was, because it was a rough surgery, my family was really, my wife's the one that really stepped up and just helped me to get healthy again, to get back to where I need to get. And it really affected me as an entrepreneur, man. It's hard, guys. I'm telling you. That's why you got to check your health, because if you're an entrepreneur and you're the breadwinner, if you go down and your finances go down, and that a lot of people don't like to talk about that. Where everybody thinks we're invincible, or we're gonna live another 20 years. We don't know, and that's what happened to me, man. It just really it hit us hard. Like I said, my wife and my kids, they all rallied around me to help me, and like I said, it was just a blessing, man. I'm here today, and I'm so happy to be here and be around you guys. And I know I have a lot more to do in my life, even though I'm 55. I still want to keep going. I like this entrepreneurship. I like the challenge. I like the things that come across your way because you're actually learning as you're going through the process.
Yeah, let me tell you, George, it's so good hearing your story. And because it's a great reminder to all of us here, that it's why we're doing what we're doing and to look after ourselves in that journey. I myself, I get regular blood tests to check for things all the time. Yeah, it's just because I know that I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16. And basically, I've never had a full time job in my life. I've always built businesses, and it takes a toll. And one of the people I listen to in my life is my wife. We've been married now for just about 35 years this year, and I really listen to her. And the thing that I listen to her about is I she says to me things such as, "Hey, you've been working too hard for too long." And she'll just drop little sentences like that in there. And she literally had a conversation with me this morning because we just launching a new product in one of my companies, and I was in the middle of that. And she goes, "Yeah, you need to take your foot off the gas. You need to go along and just chill out. You need to go along and take some time out." And it's the thing that's got me through it is my family, listening to loved ones. Yeah.
Have you never had the time when you go to work, you lose your key employee, you lost $1 million contract, the financing didn't go through, you come home and your wife's, I think we should change the color of the kitchen or maybe do a renovation today. And yet you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, you have no idea. You have no idea what I went through today. And that has happened to me many times in my life. And I'm just curious, maybe it's a different relationship. Everybody's got different relationships, but we go through so much. And I've done my best to protect my spouse from my roller coaster. because it's been a roller coaster. A lot of bankruptcies, a lot of big wins. It's been too much. And sometimes now I actually go the other way. I make $1 million contract or something, I don't necessarily tell her. I don't always share the successes now because I know that she's been through so much. It's 25 years of a roller coaster. I can't imagine. You said 35 years. I can't imagine. Anyway, I'm coming from a different perspective here. I'm coming
Yeah,
from an
yeah.
angle
No,
that every one of us
you're
in the
exactly
audience
right.
probably think that we go through all this chaos, and then we come home and, oh, what color do you want to make? And I don't mean like your wife or your husband, or it could be your kids, it could be your cousins, it could be your mother, it could be whatever. And they're always talking to you about these things that almost seem so irrelevant, but they're not. They're extremely important. And I know that. I recognize that. And maybe I didn't recognize that when my kids were growing up. A little bit what you said, George, right? It's these were big things, whether they had a grade B or A or whatever. And by the way, I did want my kids to have good grades, but I'm just saying, whether they did this project or not that project. And yet you literally you couldn't even, there have been nights where I come home at dinner and I'm like, my gosh, I couldn't even breathe almost. I've been so stressed out. Things went so bad today or whatever. And you have no idea what happened. Look what happened to me last week. The company that I started with my partners and I, 800 employees in Mykolaiv, Ukraine. And they literally, people are dying and my employees are fighting a war. And I come home and I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, oh, I have to be nice and I have to be like, it's hard. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Look, Colin, I'm actually in your camp on this. You literally, I've been in situations where you're surrounded by alligators, and some of them are gnawing away at your leg. And I come home, and someone complains to me because the garbage can, the trash can, it is too full. I'm thinking, you just take it out then. You have any idea what I'm dealing with? Like, seriously? Or I remember I sat down with my two daughters at one stage and I said to them, look, I'm going through a really tough time. Can you guys just do the dishes tonight rather than me? It's just something trivial like that. I said, I just need to get some mind space. And they began to argue with me. And it just did my head in. It really did my head in. And it was the thing I realized through this, though, after it did my head in, the thing I realized was there's certain things that entrepreneurs need to bear and certain things they can share. And I find that with my family is that they don't understand and I can't expect them to understand. It's not their job to understand. It's their job to actually bring me back to normality. That's their job, and they're doing their job really well. The fact that they want to change my wife wants to change the curtains or something like that, or she wants to go away on a vacation, and Michael, can you organize that? Because I just can't find a spot, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, I don't give a stuff where the vacation is, as long as I can have a drink in my hand and sitting down next to a pool. It's a bit like that. Like just pick a place and just go. But it's important for them to do their job, and their job is actually to bring you back to the ground. And there's a certain amount of arrogance almost in expecting them to understand exactly how you feel. And in the end, one of my strategies has been, hey, Dad's had a really tough day. All I want is a hug. I just want a hug. And that's become almost like a signal. Or they sometimes will just look at me and they'll just come up and just give me a hug because they can't understand. They got no idea what's going on. You hear a story like George. He's working himself to the bone, not looking after his health and all that sort of stuff, and everything. And yet his family still gathered around him at that critical health point. And when it really hits its road, who gives a stuff about the business? Seriously, who gives a stuff about it? Because what's important is when you're about to go along and meet your maker, who's really important? Is that supplier? Is it that contract? Or is it your wife and your kids, your loved ones around you? ultimately, that's what's really important. And we say that, yeah, and we go along and use all sorts of wonderful words and everything like that to say, yes, of course, of course. But how is your behavior during the week reflecting that? And I bet you, George, and I want to come back to you on this, George, I bet you behave differently now to your family than you did before your heart attack.
Well,
I'll
yeah,
ask that question.
no, absolutely. I think so. Absolutely. I think and even the kids too. My kids act differently too because they're saying, man, they're lucky that I'm still around, right? They tell me, go, Dad, I'm so happy you're still around. And me too, you could say, because like I said, I feel like I appreciate them more now because of the close call. And I appreciate everybody really around me because I don't really have too many friends. But like I said, the people that are around me, man, I appreciate them all the time. And I have a sense of, I don't know, I just want to get to the point where, when I pass, that they're taken care of, that my kids are taken care of. So they don't have to go through the struggles I went through. But yeah, you're right. It did change. It did give me a different outlook of life. Believe me, Michael. It made me think about a lot of things of what things I have to still change, not only as a husband, as a father, but also as an entrepreneur too.
Yeah, I agree with you. And coming back to you, Colin, yeah, the thing that I find in myself, I go through uh, is you're dealing with, like I said, the alligators and all the different issues and great big plans and yada. And then you come home, there's some trivial issue. And to trivialize the trivial for you is at height of arrogance. And that's what I found in myself. And I have dare I say, I have a bad habit of doing that, is that we'll have a family function. Like we got one on Monday, for instance, for my son's birthday. All the families coming around and all that sort of stuff. And I know the conversation, it'll be like, it'll be everything from the weather to the latest music, or you look at this particular thing on YouTube, or it's all that sort of stuff. And, and I'll sit there and I'll be thinking, yeah, but they're blowing the hell out of Ukraine right now. Isn't that a bit more important to think about? And yeah, it's there's a great saying: if you get serious with life, it's going to get serious with you. And the thing I'm finding more and more is, and I think there's some wisdom in this, is that in amongst the triviality, there's an enormous amount of love. And the fact that your family wants to be with you is because of that love. And if you're all the time going to work and you're constantly doing work, and they're complaining about you being so much doing as work stuff and everything, the only reason why they complain is because they love you. The problem you're going to have is when they stop complaining. Yeah, when they stop complaining, it means they've given up. And when they've given up, it's like game is over there. And it makes you wonder, are you actually climbing the right ladder of success? Colin, what are you going to say about, you got any thoughts on that?
Look, I'm not the right person to be even in this club, in this group, in this room, because when it comes down to it, I probably don't act like I should. I'm not. When there's a crisis that hits, I tend to isolate myself. So when pandemic hit, I'm invested in about now I'm invested in 15 companies. At the time when the pandemic hit, but I was invested in about 8 or 9 companies, and about 3 or 4 of them were in total chaos. So I flew up to my home in Canada, isolated myself for a month, on the phone for 18 hours a day, totally dealt with everything. I mean, we killed it. Because when crisis hits, you can make a dent. You can actually make a difference. When the war hit 2 weeks ago, same thing. Total isolation, work on it. I've done nothing but focus on how do I help the people at my office to get out of the country, and how do I get money to the people in that country, and what can I do to help them. So I've been really focused. So there are times in my life when I totally separate from my family to focus. And I don't know if that's an anomaly or if that's normal. It's probably not. This is not, I'm the
Yeah,
right way
yeah,
to do it.
Colin.
This is probably the wrong way to do it, but I'm just telling you,
Colin, can
this
I
is what
just
I
say,
do.
yeah,
I'm not
Colin,
saying
can
this
I
is
just
right.
say, I'm going to interrupt you here. I can actually say, I think that's actually normal. That's actually a normal behavior, is that when a crisis hits, you've got to get really focused. And I view it this way. It's like you got a trust account with your family. And in those crisis times, you're actually doing withdrawals. What you don't want to do is have your trust account with your family go into overdraft. And so it's in those times when it's not a crisis, you're depositing into the account with your family. And your family actually want to carry you through those times. And they understand that you've got to go and solve some serious problems. Yeah, it doesn't mean they need to know all the details. They just know you need to go away and solve those problems, get very focused. And one of the amazing things about a lot of really great entrepreneurs is they have the ability to do that. They have the ability to really focus in amongst all the crap that's going on and then solve the problems. It's a bit like
Michael, like when you have a crisis, do you really pull your family through that crisis together? Do you face
no,
that
no,
together or do you separate? I separate. I do it
separate.
myself.
Absolutely
So
separate
we're curious to
because
the
I find
audience. You
they
got to be in
become
the
a
audience
distraction.
now. This is a curious question. You're in the audience now. You are running a company. You have the stress of running a company. You're an entrepreneur. Come on stage, raise your hand. Let's have some fun here. Let's just have an open dialogue. That's what this is all about. Come on stage. It'll be really fun to talk about this a little bit more and to get a little bit more deep because most people would say, oh, we have to work together and work with their family. I'm like, no, I don't do that.
That's bull crap. I hate to say. When you have a crisis hit, what you got to do is actually focus on the crisis, and that's when you're withdrawing from the trust account with the family. And the family needs to understand that. There's a crisis. What you don't want to have is a business where you're in perpetual crisis. That's not a good situation for your health, for your family, or for your own well-being at all. But when a crisis hits, you focus. And I separate myself from my family. Like the other day, because we're launching a new product, it's in alpha at the moment out there, and we're showing some clients that and all that sort of stuff. And I was right in the middle of that, and I just said to them, I said, I'm working 14, 15 hours a day, and I'll be doing that for the next week and a half to 2 weeks. That's all there is to it. It's not really a crisis as such, but it's more a case of I just need to do what I need to do. And I explained to them at the end of that. So my wife said, "So when about can we essentially see you again?" Yeah. And I said, "Probably mid to late next week." And she goes, "Yeah." And I just upfront, and that's just what's going to happen. And I can go along and let's bring in this lovey-dovey family situation along. But you know what? They actually don't need to see that because all they're going to see is Dad needs to go along and do what he needs to do, and he is faking it with them during that time of crisis or whatever it is. Yeah, and you can't do that. There's times, Colin, you just need to get on and get crap done.
It's funny, I see Kevin in the audience here and travel. You just made me think about travel, and Michael about that too, traveling and as an entrepreneur and you Dot Club, we just sold that to GoDaddy. It's a company that is sold in over 50 to 100 countries around the world. Michelle and I, we traveled to most of those countries. Kevin in the audience, he's traveled too. Travel can have an impact on your family too. And I do know that there's some techniques that some people have used when they travel to help support their family, including daily videos and those kind of things. I'm not a good example of that. Kevin's coming on, so hopefully he can shed some light onto this issue.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, travel. I agree with you, and I yeah,
It's
one of the
what they
most
used to do
horrible
back in the
things.
old days before 2020, remember?
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. There's one of the most horrific things you could possibly do as an entrepreneur is look at the number of frequent milers you have. And then you think, oh my gosh. And then you say to yourself, how many of them were actually earned in coach because you're trying to put aside money or whatever for business class and all that sort of stuff. And it's crushing. Like their airline rewards you so you can fly more. It's one of those things. But anyway, you're listening to the entrepreneur, the complete entrepreneur, and we're discussing the entrepreneur's family. And if you're in the audience right now and you're saying, boy, have I got some stories to tell you, ways I blew it, the ways I really really did it well. And these are some of the things that I did to help manage like the family and all the relationships as I pursued my vision for my company. Love to hear from you. But I just want to jump down to Neil and then we'll come across to Kevin. Neil, welcome to the Complete Entrepreneur. You've got some thoughts to share on this topic. I'd love to hear from you. Neil, welcome to the stage.
Hey, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you as well.
Yeah, thoughts on this topic. Passionate about entrepreneurship. It's like and I consider it to be like a gift from the Lord. The ability to co-create with the Lord is participating in the garden, and it may be the 21st century, but it's still a garden, and we're still welcome, and we should be excited about a faith-based approach to building out His kingdom through business. In regards to my family, for whatever reason, they did not resonate with that perception. And my biological family is what I end up calling them, because when times I needed to lean on them uh, for help maintaining a focus on staying grounded on a horizontal level, person to person, while the Lord was challenging me on a vertical level, it was very much just go work for the county, and every day is a good day at the county. And my heart breaks a little bit, because as an entrepreneur and seeing business as one of the fronts of God's kingdom, right? One of the front lines. It takes the wind out of your sails when you dedicate your life to building a business, and then you try to lean back on family, and they just take the wind out of you and kind of delegitimize your vision. And that's,
Yeah,
you know,
it's interesting. Sorry if I interrupt you there, Neil.
not
It's interesting you say that. Is that you obviously have a clear vision for your business and everything, and you're trying to lean back on family. Yeah, and that's the challenge, isn't it? Is do we have a right to lean on our family, and do they have an obligation to support us in those times? And clearly, you have a Christian background in your beliefs and that sort of stuff. And one of the things I would encourage you is take a look at 1 Corinthians 13. Yeah, and that's the essence of what we need to display for our family, which is what the essence of love is. I noticed in your little icon there it says faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love.
yeah,
And how do you actually share that? And I used the example of a trust account before, of depositing into a trust account with our family before we withdraw. And and one of the challenges is we've got to do it in that order. We've got to deposit before we withdraw,
true,
because if you get into a overdraft situation, let me tell you, the family's probably going to be running away a million miles before you actually go along and can get some support from. It's depositing. And how do you deposit in an appropriate manner? And then how do you share in an appropriate manner some of the struggles you're going through internally in yourself? It's a really interesting question you open up there. But thank you for your input on that. I was going to jump across to Kevin here. Kevin, you've traveled all over the place, and it's more than just a relationship with a family. It's a relationship, I call it, with loved ones. How have you managed that? You've been on the road, and in those times pre-COVID, obviously, because right now with COVID, we're traveling via Zoom. And by the way, Zoom's great, but aren't you sick to death of it as well? So,
So
Kevin,
I'm actually going to use you, Colin, Michelle, and George as an example right now. Like, we've become best friends in so many different situations around the world where we've met. COVID has obviously been really weird for that, but I live in Austin, Texas, and I have friends here, but I have Michael, I feel like I know you so well. I've met your family, I've met your daughters, I've met your wife, and we've celebrated things together. So managing that now is a little bit weird. We're connecting more like digitally. Michelle, as soon as I popped into this room, she texted me about one of our other friends, and I was like, yeah, please call me. I want to connect about that. I think there's dealing with a lot of things like that. Colin, to your point of the registry thing, like domains and everything that brought us, I guess, into this room is definitely
Really
also.
traveling, right? Like the traveling, like you've done a lot of traveling. How's that affected your relationships?
Yeah, I have an ex-wife. I got rid of her. That's done that. But our relationships, I think, are still pretty strong. If we see each other, if I see you, Colin, if I see anyone in this room, whatever,
I
like I'm
was
gonna.
referring to your family relationships, your girlfriends, your wives, your ex-wives. It sounds like travel has had an impact. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
curious. Like, I'm not trying to goad you here. I'm just trying to like figure out, is it really had an impact on you, your entrepreneurial career, the traveling,
did
and
Okay, thanks for you're bringing it back to the title of this room. I don't think that with my ex-wife that travel was the issue because I was flying 250,000 miles a year roughly. .org and my current company and things like that. I don't think that ever affected anything. It was other stuff, but we made time for ourselves. Like we went and this is not to be anything weird, but we went and bought or hired a cleaning lady to come and clean our house so that on Saturdays when I was home, we would go do our own thing and go to a farmer's market or go to a brunch or go to a like movie or like we had our date times that we set aside for that. I think if you do it right, it doesn't work out. But also I like what you said, Colin, earlier about when something happens, like you go isolate yourself. And I'm actually very similar to that. Like when something happens, I'm gonna leave my friends, I'm gonna leave family, whatever, and I'm gonna go do what I need to do to fix the problem or to go isolate to concentrate on something. And I don't think it's isolate, I think it's concentrate. And I think that's the term there that I would use. And I do the same thing where I'm like, I'm going to go concentrate on this problem or this situation or this whatever I need to work on. And then if it's a week, if it's a month, if it's a day, whatever it is, I'm okay with that. And everyone that knows me knows that, okay, Kevin's in his own little place. And now we're like, when he comes back from that little place, I'm not like a crazy person before that, but I'm just like, hey, I need some time. I have something I have to go concentrate on, and giving my full focus to that is. And now what actually popped into my brain, just to keep talking, just for 2 more seconds, not 2 more seconds, but I always wear a gray T-shirt and jeans and boots, and anyone here that knows me knows that about me. I live in Texas, so I wear the boot thing. But I remember reading a lot about Steve Jobs. He always wore his turtleneck and like jeans, whatever it was wearing. But he was like, I don't want to. You get into like decision fatigue. If you're waking up in the morning and you're making different decisions about what you're doing, like towards the end of the day, it's harder for you to make harder decisions. So choosing like the same thing, like my closet looks, it's all gray. It's all gray t-shirts. Some have different logos. Right now I'm wearing a Harley Davidson logo t-shirt, but it's a gray t-shirt. And I don't care. And that gets me through I don't care what I'm wearing. But yeah,
it's
so
funny. I do the same thing. I wear the same startup club.
I do.
Hold on, I wear the same startup club shirt everywhere. But since the stories about the
exactly.
family, my wife gets so upset. I will wear it on the weekends. I say, no, you got to change your shirt. Go to a restaurant. You can't have that shirt there. We already have the car that says Startup Club on it, on the car, and Dot Club. It's a Tesla I had since 2015. Everywhere in the city we go, people see us where we're going, and she's already upset about that. But she gets so upset if I wear that T-shirt on the weekends.
Oh, look, guys, I'm guilty as charged. I have basically my drawer of black and gray T-shirts. Right now, I lashed out, and I'm now dressed by SpaceX because I just bought a whole heap of more black and gray stuff from SpaceX. But yeah, I am guilty of that. And you're right, it's decision fatigue. But coming back to the topic of family and that sort of stuff, it's an interesting challenge. And one of the things that I said, I outlined some strategies that I found have worked for me. Number one strategy is listen to your loved ones. And don't just listen to their words, listen to their heart and listen to what they're expressing towards you. And in amongst all of the chaos of what it means to be an entrepreneur, it's actually really hard to do that, to stop and really listen. And sometimes my wife will sit down with me and she'll say, you need to go away for a couple of days and get your head straight. You're becoming unbearable. I'll say, what do you mean? I'm quite normal. What are you talking about? Yeah. And the fact is, I just needed to get away for a couple of days because I had so many things racing around my head. And I'll just go away and just myself, my laptop, and I'll just dump my brain out, rearrange essentially my life and what's going on, everything, get focused on things, all that sort of stuff, clear the decks, a whole lot of other things. And after 2 or 3 days, I come back and I'm like a different person. But the only reason why I do that is because my wife said to me, "You're becoming unbearable." In a nice, loving way, she says that. And you just need to get away to get your head straight. So that's the number one thing is listen, really listen to your loved ones because they'll tell you things like no one else will tell you. The other thing I've learned is don't always fill the home with business talk, is really listen to them. What's the rules? You've got 2 ears and one mouth. Use them in those proportions. So just listen to them. And there's a guy, he was a negotiator for the FBI. I watched his masterclass and he gave some great advice for conversations that you may be totally uninterested in. He said, all you do is repeat back the last sentence the person talking to you said to show that you understand what they're saying. And so I did that around the meal table one time. And I got up and I left the meal table. My kids said to my wife, they're adult kids now, "Wow, that was amazing. Dad's completely changed. All I did was just applied an FBI negotiating tactic at the meal table, and they suddenly thought everything was great." And there's some skills you can learn to help yourself with your family. So listen to your family rather than talk, but do discuss important topics at times, but don't discuss them all the time. Like, for instance, one of the things I did a lot of is I taught my kids how to manage their finances. And we did it around the meal table. And that really gave them a better appreciation as they got older of what it means to be an entrepreneur, as they began to understand things and that sort of stuff, because they had that grounding when they were like, they say 10, 11, 12, and that sort of stuff. As I began to share with them on managing finances. The other thing I do is I have a physical signal to my family that when I'm home, because I work from home, and I have a physical signal, and the physical signal is, it's going to sound really stupid, but I put my moccasins on. When I put my moccasins on, my family knows I'm actually at home versus working. If I don't put my moccasins on, they know I'm actually still in work mode. Even though I may be wearing my runner sneakers, whatever, at the meal table and everything like that, they know I'm going to go back to work after dinner. But if they see my moccasins are on, they know that, hey, he's going to sit down, watch some TV or whatever with the family. And that's become a signal for them, and they understand that, and that's been communicated across the years. So there's
I
a
like
few
the
things that
moccasins,
I've used.
Michael.
Yeah,
I like that. I
uh,
like that. Oh, I
yeah,
have a
it's
question
it's a
though.
physical, it's a physical signal.
I have a question. I brought
And,
up earlier about this idea of sharing the success and the pain with your family. You come home, and Michael, I want to know from you, George, Kevin, Neil. I'd like to understand. You have a big success, great. You celebrate it with your family, yes or no? You have big issues like a war, or like we have it here in Ukraine, or the pandemic, or whatever it is. Do you share that pain with your family? Is everything shared? I'm
yeah,
just very curious about this. Is
yeah.
something
No,
that I'm
that's an
very
interesting
curious about.
question. That's an interesting question. I can only share with you guys my perspective on that, and that is the answer is it depends. For instance, when the kids were younger, I would never share some of the things. They're not built to handle that. They don't like. I have this golden rule: can they assist? And the biggest thing when your kids are younger can do is just give you a hug. And so, why would sharing my pain across my 10-year-old or something like that when he was 10 years old, why would that actually be a good thing to do? No, it's not built for that. On the other hand, my 28-year-old, we went out for lunch, and I was just sharing some struggles and everything like that, and he began to give me some really good advice, and so it was a different conversation. Now I'm going to jump to my
So what
relationship
age?
with
What
my
age, Michael? Like you went from 12 to 28. So there's got to be
yeah.
something in between.
Yeah, there is some stages in between, and I find it's less about age as they do progress, and it's more about maturity. And I found that with my daughters and with my son, that it was around about the 21, 22 years old, I began to share more openly. And the reason why is because between about 16 and 21, they're totally self-absorbed, so they don't really care anyway. And all I'm going to do is share and get hurt myself. So why would I do that? And yeah, that sort of age range, and it's different for all the different kids. Now, let me jump to my wife. In the case of my wife, that's an interesting one. I share all the nitty gritty of what I'm going through? No, I don't, because she can't help. The only thing my wife can do is, once again, give me a hug. I'm not after advice. I'm not after her to solve my problems. I'm after there. I'm after her just to put her arms around me. That's really what I'm after. And I'll sometimes say that. I'll say, I just need a hug. Yeah, that's what I'm after.
Hey,
In a really rough time.
my wife's phone number is 954. You got to call her the same thing. I'm joking, but I'm serious. That's brilliant. It's just that's all you want, right?
Yeah, it's all you want. Because they can't solve your problems for you. So why involve them in solving the problems? You may be able to share some more superficial things like, hey, we've just lost a key person, or lost a contract and I'm a bit down at the moment. I'm really down. I'm trying to
I
solve
was
that
gonna
problem.
I was gonna say something similar. Like you guys, I think again, all three of you, Colin, Michael, and George, you guys have met my ex-wife, but even in that, like we're in a weird domain space. So whenever we had problems growing our business and stuff, I will definitely say like my ex-wife, I loved her for the reason why is I loved her, but she never really understood what our business was or what we were doing. So I wouldn't ever give her the day to day of this is what happened or this is why this is terrible or this is why this is amazing. So we did celebrate wins and she'd be able to know that I was like stressed out or something like that. But Michael, to your point of I'm not like a touchy feely person, and I'm pretty sure you know that about me already. But um, like it wasn't like I need a hug right now. It was more of let me just talk a little bit. But I know that I don't want to explain the domain industry to you, but yeah, like we can get through this and I'm going to get through this, but having someone to talk to is really nice and having someone there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Kevin. And the other thing I found is that, to answer your question, Colin, from before, is that as my kids got older, I actually exposed them to the industry I was in. I took them to conferences. In fact, my son actually manned a booth at one of the conferences from one of my companies. He was on the booth. Yeah, and I brought my daughters along, and my wife came along as well. So they can then interact with some of the people that I interact with. And that actually gave them because as they became older, gave them a fresh perspective of what dad actually did. I remember when my daughter was in kindergarten many years ago. It's my middle daughter. The kindergarten teacher said to the class, "What does your dad do?" "Oh, he's a fireman." "What does your dad do?" "Oh, he's a policeman." This one's a teacher. And she finally came to my daughter and said, "So what does your dad do?" And she said, "He sits on his computer and that's all." And that was it. Yeah. Because that's what she understood. Yeah, that's what she understood dad did. The fact that he's able to magic money out of his computer didn't even dawn on her. She had no concept of that. But years down the track, I took her to some conferences and she began to understand that, hey, you know what? Her dad actually does some pretty interesting stuff. And it's not just magicking stuff out of a computer. Yeah, so it's an interesting world we live in, Colin. This is a topic that we could go on and on about it when I reflect on it. And it's one we probably will come back on the Complete Entrepreneur and revisit it. But sadly, the time is up and we need to be moving on in our different lives. And can I just say, it's been great having my fellow moderators on the stage with me and those people who've come up to the stage, Kevin, George, Neil, and who've come up here as well, just to share their experiences with their family. I've appreciated it so much. So it's been actually really great. And
Thank
I'd
you
like
for
to thank
having me.
all the
I hope I
people.
was able to share something with someone.
Not a problem. And thank you for those in the audience as well. Really do appreciate that. So, Colin, what's going on with Startup Club this week, and what can we all look forward to? I know Startup Club is the biggest club on Clubhouse.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. We hit 820,000 members. But before I go there, please look at the link above. We just got another donor who came in for $30. We hit $142,000. If you do it right now, I can call your name out. Just go to givesendgo.com. We are the number one donation right now for Give Send Go. The money that we are using, the company that we're using for, is for the hospital that, I don't know if you've seen CNN in the last couple of days, but they showed the soldiers that were hit, and the actual hospital that's taking care of them is the one that we're funding here. That's our main focus of this charity. We have people on the ground. We are in Mykolaiv, Ukraine. We had about 700 employees. We now probably have about 200 or 300. They're still on the ground locally, and they're fighting the actual war, and they're also helping people in the city. So this is a very cool thing because we're not going through a bureaucracy. What we're doing is we're donating money directly and instantly, and it's being deployed now. GiveSendGo.com. It's on the top of the screen. Please give. It makes a difference. You can sit back, you can look back at the war and say, wow, that was interesting, or you can actually make a difference by donating. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern, we have Mike Alden. Mike Alden is a best-selling author. He is, I'm looking at his website right now. You go to mikealden.com. He's a TV personality, best-selling author. On his podcast, he runs a podcast. He's at Grant Cardone, Kevin Harrington's from the Shark Tank, and tons of guests. He is talking to us about why entrepreneurs need to create a brand. Think about that, Kevin. Why does Kevin need to be a brand? Is the
Yeah,
business
and
not just good enough, Kevin, or not? This is all about creating a brand. So Mike Alden tomorrow, he's the number one in the world at doing this. At 2 o'clock Eastern, every single business, every single entrepreneur needs to create their own brand, and that's the show for it.
yeah, that's going to be a great show, that's for sure. And please give to the givesendgo.com. I know I did last week when it first posted it. And it's great to know that the money is going directly to a fabulous cause. Yeah, anything we could possibly do to save lives on both sides of the conflict is good. So next week we'll be taking a look on the complete entrepreneurs. Where are the opportunities? Like you're trying to find a great idea. Where are those ideas coming from? And what does it mean to generate great ideas for your business? Or what's going to be the next great idea? We're going to be unpacking all of that, and it's going to be a great time on The Complete Entrepreneur. I look forward to seeing you at 5 p.m. Eastern Time next Thursday, and it's great having you here. So take care. God bless everyone.